afternoon, and welcome to the June 27th Council Work Session. And first up is a 2021 update.
Over.
Right. I'm super happy to be here talking about 2021 again. I'm Sarah Maderi, Public Works Director, and I'm here with Stephanie Scaffa, who is, will do part of the presentation, but is also working as a kind of project lead on 2021 and a career development type assignment right now. So you'll probably be seeing and hearing from her quite a bit more. So what we wanted to do today is talk a little bit about the event that's coming, and also the opportunity that we have inside of the organization and in the community. I'm going to share tiniest little bit about the mayor and I's trip to London and some of the things we learned, and talk more specifically about Oregon 21 and the way that we're leading and structured around the committee work. Let's see. If you were on the budget committee or on council back a couple years ago, I shared this slide before, but I think it's useful to go back through some of the basic demographics of the event. It's the actual event is sponsored by the International Association of Athletics Federation, and that one rolls right off your tongue, which is one of John's popular. That's why everybody says IAAF. But that event in 2021 will be the largest sporting event in the world. It's usually only surpassed by the Olympics or World Cup. World Cup's going on right now, so everybody in the world's watching that. But in 2021, they'll all be watching Eugene. The dates are picked to be August 6th through 15th. I keep doing this kind of number swap on Stephanie. She's like, no, that's not the right dates. 6th through 15th, which literally 1 hour before this presentation, I realized I will get to have the world's largest birthday party because I'll be turning 55 during the event. So everybody will be invited. The whole world will come.
Will the world all sing together at the same time?
I'm very, very humble about this.
Enough cake for everyone.
Yeah, the world's largest cake. We'll break all these records this year. And just a reminder that it's 9 days of competition, and there's also this period that people talk about, 30 days of camps, where the different countries will be coming and being in different parts of Oregon training up till the event. So it's not the same as the Olympic trials where people fly in and kind of fly out. There'll be a larger presence across the state for probably a good portion of July and August. We expect there to be about 2,000 athletes, and the media, I think we have estimated at 3,000, which I think is at least twice what happens at the Olympic trials. You'll see a photo and a little bit of just one little place that we saw some of that when we were in London. And then the next number I like to talk about is like the 6 billion TV viewers, which I think it's 6 billion media viewers, so it's impressions online, who's watching on TV. It's extreme. I've double-checked these numbers a couple of times. Like, how is that possible? And I think these are the numbers from Beijing, so it may not have been quite as large of a presence during London, but it's still a lot of people that are going to be watching Eugene in the state of Oregon, and 214 countries. That number for me has always been like, well, who is that exactly? So I went into the countries that participated in the Beijing World Championships and just plugged them all into this program online that does the mapping for you. And essentially everything that is green will be here if we get the same draw. So there's not a lot of running or jumping or throwing happening in Greenland, but the rest of the world will likely be setting foot here, which is pretty phenomenal when you look at it from that perspective.
How many athletes?
2,000. And then we've been talking about, I've shown slides before that have shown the skylines of Beijing and London and these big cities, and like, wow, this is so big, and now they're coming to Eugene. So we decided just to plug in some of the population numbers. As you know, these numbers tend to be city limit numbers. So for example, the population of Portland versus the population of what we all think of as Portland are different. But you still see there was quite a spike when this is kind of chronologically in order. Quite a spike in Moscow, Beijing, and London, and Doha, which is quite large when you look at the skyline. Actually, the area that is technically Doha is much smaller. And then we were just like, well, what does that mean for the state of Oregon? Because I think that's really how this has been pitched as an Oregon-wide event. Oregon, really kind of is about the right number of population of what the other cities have been. Eugene and Lane County much smaller. But we like to do that and say, wow, this is such a huge opportunity for Eugene. But I also look at this and I think, well, actually, we're not that far out of line. We're well capable of handling this. So I don't think anybody needs to panic that the world is coming. It won't be that overwhelming. It'll just be a really cool opportunity. So last summer, the mayor and I had an opportunity. Oh, you told me that was going to happen. Had the opportunity to go to London, and the entire purpose of that was to meet some of the organizers, learn more about what we could expect as a community, what we could expect from the event, and we were able to learn a lot, experience a lot. And so I'm going to just show a couple of videos that just give you a little bit of the look and feel of what was happening there. Not the greatest quality because it was on my phone. But you'll get a sense of how organized it is, what kinds of volunteers they have, just some of the energy in the space. You might even hear us cheer. And right after that happened, all of these fireworks also go off around the roof, but it was hard to get kind of all of that, but pretty kind of a big deal. And then the next one, which is sort of similar, I think is actually the U.S. women winning the relay. Those would be Eugene and Oregon kids. So that's kind of what you can expect. Every single session was sold out. The night sessions, every seat was filled. It was like that for every race. It got extremely loud if there was anybody from the UK that was running. But one of the things that we learned immediately was you may have done 2008 and 2012 and 2016, but as you approach this, it won't be business as usual. These are global. It's a global event, global partnerships, and you have to not just take that same template and run it forward. And I think that the Tracktown group and Oregon 21, as they're now organized, will do a really great job at that. They had a staff person that was there working the whole time, working as part of this group, and we have all that knowledge to bring forward and those partnerships to bring forward. And another event in Doha between those times to really dial that in. So I feel really good about that. I think we also learned, and I think one of the main takeaways for us was they're not looking for Eugene to replicate what happened in Beijing or what happened in London. They're coming to Eugene and coming to Oregon for a very specific reason. They want it to be a unique Oregon experience. They want, this is kind of the home and track and field, and I think they're looking for an opportunity to come into the U.S. They've never been here before, and we have an opportunity to show that a community our size really can bring the world together in a really positive way. We talked a little bit about the media, so a couple of the other takeaways that I had, and the mayor may want to share some of hers. The media presence was pretty intense. There were places when we were coming into the event where all you could see were media trucks. And for me, I was thinking, how is that going to work and where are they going to be? Because they've always been right around that Hayward footprint, and that footprint isn't big enough to handle the kinds of media presence. So I'm just kind of curious how that's going to happen and where they'll be. This is at the race walk, and so you can tell just for one little tiny spot on the race walk, the presence that's happening. The race walk was, I'm going to show, I think the next one is a video of that, right? I'll show you a little clip of the race walk. My intent in that is really showing that they did have some events just like Oregon 21 will. They're totally free and open to the public. Anybody can come, and they're still very well attended, very exciting, and I think a way for the community to engage very positively. So who knew? Race walking.
Blow your socks off. This is going to be terrific. The fastest men in the world, 20 kilometres, 10 laps of this track. So many. You've seen some of them. Dave Bird-Smith of Australia. Ben Thorne of Canada.
And they're walking to Buckingham Palace. I mean, that's just like, they closed that road and just walked kind of around. It was pretty phenomenal, really exciting and fun. And I think we kind of happened upon it. The mayor and I, also one of our takeaways will be, it was kind of hard to gauge what the impact is in a community that's going to be the size of Eugene. We toured around, going from place to place to place, looking for where do you see the volunteers, where do you see things happening, and there's so many things happening in London, so many different river festivals and things that it was hard to say, well, here's how it's going to feel in Eugene. So we're not sure, I think, and you can say more about that. What else did I want to say about that? So this is the mission statement that has been recently revised and finally adopted, that the mission of this whole event is to engage the communities throughout Oregon and the United States, innovating how the world experiences sport, and be a global platform for advancing diverse programs that leave a lasting legacy. You can tell this mission statement is on top of one of the murals that's being put up right now. If you haven't had an opportunity when you're done with council, if you walk out into the alley right next to Perugino's, the artist is here today. He's leaving tomorrow, but they're working on it, and you can engage with it. Those are the kinds of legacies that actually the Tracktown and Oregon 21 group are hoping will also continue to move forward. So that's the vision, and then they have a lot of focus areas. I'm not going to go through these. I've shared them briefly before, but I think what's important is that they're really thinking far beyond the fence of Hayward Field, and how do people get included? How do they inspire the next generation? How do they celebrate track and field? There's, how do we build our partnerships? How do we make our whole community more healthy? So I think they really are thinking really big about this and engaging with us, and will continue to. Okay, last little piece. I think, oh yeah, here we go. So one of the ways they're doing that is just through how they're structured. I just thought I'd share a little bit about that that's different. For the 2008, 2012, and 2016 trials, they've had a local organizing committee, and the city's had a seat at that table. Renee Gruby and I both actually have been at that table. And that's usually the university, LTD, it's the state, the county. It's a pretty big group. And for Oregon 21, they're ramping that up a little bit. It's a little bit broader. We have people from the city of Portland, city of Salem. We have it's a little bit bigger and broader, as you would expect. And they've added this new kind of leadership guiding group called the councils. And they're expecting to have a host city council, and that will be the role that Mayor Venice plays. She'll be on the host city council. John will probably be on the host city council as well. And then I'm on the steering committee and participating in their what right now are very infrequent meetings. We've had one, and we'll have another in August. And then we have this whole group of delivery, how it gets delivered. And this is kind of some add-on, because there's been, the local organizing committee won't be able to do all of the work. So each of us will have a delivery liaison, which Stephanie is playing the role for us right now. And then there'll be working groups that are working specifically on safety, sustainability, all the things that we always have. So it's a little bit, the leadership is ramped up just a little bit to make sure it happens. And we'll continue to give you updates on that. But that's what I'm going to say about the event. And I think it's you, right? Yeah. Okay.
So a few years back, our executive team identified 4 key areas that we as an organization could focus our efforts to ensure that we have lasting impacts for the community, as well as provide visitors to the championships an awesome experience. And so those are listed up here. They're infrastructure, service quality and capacity, community and organizational culture, and leadership and relationships. So we're going to just talk a little bit about how we as a staff have been preparing. And to best prepare for an event of this size, and in thinking about how we're achieving that awesome experience, we're learning from other cities. We've spoken with the representative from City of Toronto in Canada, where they hosted the 2015 Pan American Games, Vancouver, BC, who hosted the Olympics in the past, as well as Los Angeles, who's hosting the Olympics in 2028, and a variety of other cities that have hosted the IAAF World Track and Field Championships in the past as well. And then as an organization, we continue to build partnerships and increase coordination of efforts that are helping to boost economic development and that have far-reaching social benefits. We're also building off of the momentum as well as catalyzing projects that we've had in the works for a long time. A few examples include revitalizing downtown and the park blocks, as well as the riverfront and the steam plant, and then also providing innovative public art and, in general, just the way we engage the community in neighborhood projects. We're in the process of developing a results-based work plan to guide all the infrastructure projects and efforts leading up to the event itself, while also being realistic about the timelines, so we can create a baseline expectation around what visitors and the community can expect by the time we reach the event date. And finally, we're also in the process of determining how best to communicate with our neighbors to ensure we receive maximum benefits as the host community. There's also creative ways that staff are engaging in this opportunity, so I'll draw from a few specific examples of projects that are currently in the works that you probably have already heard of. So the first, as Sarah had already mentioned, we are engaging right now in the 20 by 21 mural project, and this is an initiative of the Cultural Services Public Art Program to create 20 or more world-class murals in Eugene between now and the 2021 championships. The project is led by a highly engaged committee representing collaboration across sectors, and this includes communications, law, architecture, small business, nonprofit, and the arts. 20 by 21 aims to bring color and life to Eugene's urban landscape and to foster pride and contribute to a sense of identity. The project is growing, and it's going to be seeking artist exchanges between Eugene artists and international cities. And in 2021, the project is going to be the focus of an exhibition at the University of Oregon's Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art. Another project that's currently in the works is being led by our urban forestry team. They're using the event as an opportunity to offset carbon emissions produced from the event itself, associated tourist activity, and city preparations and operations. They're aiming to plant 2021 giant sequoias to increase green infrastructure, in turn hosting the community, hosting the event into a sustainability opportunity. They've chosen giant sequoias because those particular trees require less maintenance and are resistant to drought, wind, fire, and damage. And it's also a particular type of species that's really good at carbon sequestration. Some staff are taking an individual effort to make an impact. For example, our Public Works Director is in the process of receiving and giving 2021 high fives by the time 2021 comes around.
Plenty of opportunities. I'm only down to 2004.
But by the end of this work session, she'll be below 2,000. So make sure you engage with her on that.
Aren't you supposed to actually connect?
We did. That was post-connect.
And then
Follow through. It's all about the follow through.
in terms of what's next, coming up this August, the Oregon 21 Steering Committee is going to be meeting to discuss the general plan for how to best deliver the event in the community. Sarah and I will be providing quarterly updates to all of you to allow for dialogue and just to keep you updated on how things are progressing. We've had the chance to meet with some of you one-on-one, and as the project continues to move forward, we'll reach out in case you have more thoughts around our efforts. And we're also engaging in all the citywide projects that were mentioned earlier, which will continue to move forward. We'll be sharing the work plan with you when it is finalized. We have plans for developing a website that will serve as a hub for getting information about the city's involvement and how people can just in general participate. And lastly, we know that it's necessary to spend a significant amount of time in the coming year educating the community about what the event is, as just kind of a baseline expectation. And so at this point, I'd just like to open up to all of you to hear from you directly about what kinds of engagement you'd like to see in your neighborhoods. We have some ideas based on some of the research that we've done, but really we want to hear from everyone living out in the community to really make sure that we're delivering on creating a really good experience for the whole community. So at this time, I'll just kind of open it up for for discussion, and thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a moment to bring two pieces together from each of your presentations and recall that when Sarah and I first got there and went to the stadium and the color was this hot pink, and we both thought, really? I mean, it just didn't seem right. But actually, as we were out and about in London, because there is so much going on, they did have volunteers for this, handing out leaflets, especially promoting the walk. And that hot pink actually stood out all over the city, so that it was actually very good sort of promotional color for that event in a very busy city, these really distinctive pieces. And the other thing that really relates to your comment, Stephanie, is that when the head of the organizing committee there, the London committee, talked about it, he talked about what an opportunity this was to sort of galvanize their volunteer involvement in the community, and that what a great opportunity it was to sort of be a gateway to engage people in all kinds of community activities, not necessarily strictly related to the event itself, but related to other needs that they had in the community, that they used this as a sort of a gateway for volunteer involvement. So I kind of think we should hold that in our heads a little bit about we see this as a sort of a deadline that drives a lot of things that we want to get done in the city, but it also is this incredible opportunity for us to sort of strengthen our capacity going forward around volunteers and investment and community engagement. So it was pretty inspiring how they had done it. Okay, so in the queue, I have Alan. Other comments? Well, you started off, Alan.
Yeah, how many people are expected to come as visitors?
Well, I think that it'll be similar in that each athlete will probably bring some family members. So I don't have the exact number for that. I think they'll only sell the number of seats that they have in the stadium, which we know to be 30,000. Yeah. And I think there was close to 50 in London. Is that the number? Yeah. Right.
So 30 to 40, or 50,000 people are going to descend. Where are we going to put them all?
Good question. So the athletes will be.
How are they going to get here?
They're going to ride their bikes.
or speed walk.
The current plan is that the university will house the athletes, so it'll be very much like an Olympic Village. They'll be staying in the housing that's available on campus, the dorms. And then they're working on arrangements for where the media will stay, and some of those arrangements will include potentially contracting out some of the student housing that's in the downtown or periphery to downtown. There's some real advantages to having the high-speed fiber and the ability to communicate with the world if you're in the downtown area. And then we're hoping to have a few new hotels open. People will be doing that. They'll be staying with friends and around. They'll be doing it similar. One of the things I wanted to mention is it's not one of the event is amazing, and it's also because it's IAAF, it's also kind of a conference for all of the track and field associations. So each country has their sort of version of USATF, and they're also meeting. So they're meeting and they're having parties and they're opening and closing. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening outside the fence. So I'm guessing there'll be people staying up and down I-5. Some of the events there'll be a couple of events probably in Portland. I think the race walk will be in Salem, so it'll be shared across the state.
Yeah, the locus of all this activity is actually going to be in my ward, and in my neighborhoods. My neighborhood in particular, just walked by Hayward Field last night. By the way, the East Grandstands is gone, and it's being recycled into wood, metal, and other kinds of things. But and they're starting the demo of it, or they've already started the demo of it. So that area is going to be ground zero, and huge impacts on our neighborhoods. And so what type of neighborhood association engagement are we having with the folks that are, and how often is that going to be? When's it start? What are we going to have people, how are they going to be able to participate in that and ease their concerns that I'm already starting to hear about because of the huge amount of influx of people just descending into our little part of the town?
I'll say a couple of things about that. I think the university did commit to doing some work with the neighborhoods around what will be the impacts of the new stadium, and so that will set, I think, some basic groundwork for it. We haven't gotten into those specifics at the organizing committee, but we typically do get into a lot of details around parking and traffic flow, and I'm guessing we can just ramp that up, and you're welcome to provide your insight into how we do that from a city perspective and how we lead that. And then the second piece is we're hoping to have some of those activities actually move away from Hayward and other locations of the city. So one of the things we've talked about is, what if the fan festival is on the river and not actually at Hayward? So you have an opportunity to come to the river, still watch the big screen, potentially have the medal ceremonies there, and have a really great summer event on the river that takes a little bit of the pressure off of Hayward and invites the community into it at a larger scale. So I think those two things going together could help.
Yeah, my suggestion is that very engaged neighborhood associations, by all means, don't represent everybody in the neighborhoods, but they're very engaged. And on topics like this, people do come out to the neighborhood association meetings. So if we could start to engage those associations early on with updates, here's what we're thinking, we're keeping you involved, we know it's going to be a big impact, we're going to work on parking and traffic and all this other stuff. So that would be, I think, very helpful and a smart thing to do. The second question is about, or third question is about Airbnbs. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people who will want to rent out their houses in the neighborhoods. And is there going to be a coordinated effort on that, or sort of that housing of the coaches and athletes and families that'll be coming here?
I don't know how if you have answers to these questions, feel free to just say, stop. We do have a very coordinated, all of the events have had a very coordinated housing piece that's typically done through Travel Lane County. They'll have contracts with all the different hotels. They're working with all the different teams and coaches and people that are buying tickets and making sure that they have the right number of blocks of rooms and things. I don't know how they're intersecting into the Airbnb conversation. I can ask that question.
Yeah, because I already have people talk about renting out their houses for the week, or for the 2-week period, and for people who are going to be here for quite a while. And I just want to make sure that doesn't kind of fall through the cracks. That's going to be an important part of coordinating stuff that happens in our neighborhood. Because I mean, if you're next to one of those houses that you're not renting, but somebody else is, that might be, I want to prevent problems from occurring.
Yeah.
Comments? Anybody else? Any comments? Okay, I guess we're good to go. We're ready for a mega event in Eugene.
World's largest birthday party. And a track meet.
No, thank you very much. It's it'd be great to have an update, and we're looking forward to the next one. Okay, round 2. Okay, welcome.
Noon.
Work on Envision Eugene here.
Yes. So Mayor and Council, I'm Terry Harding. I'm the Long Range Planning Manager for the city. And with me today is Chelsea Hartman, who's a new Associate Planner managing the second phase of our comprehensive plan. So I know how much you all enjoy, and we all enjoy talking about planning, especially after such a great, fun presentation about 2021. But I think they are related because we have such an awesome community that people really spend a lot of time thinking about cultivating the qualities that we enjoy on into the future. And so that's one of the things that this plan will do, is help implement our community vision. So with that, I'm going to not talk for too long. I'll give you a little bit of the background on what we already have done with the comprehensive plan, and then turn it over to Chelsea to go through information on the second phase of the project for your discussion and input. And we're not going to be asking you for any decisions today. This is a broad overview, and we're seeking and welcoming your comments that will help guide this project as it launches. So how did we get here? As you all know, but also for the audience, Oregon's statewide planning program calls for every city, including Eugene, to thoughtfully plan for the future by adopting an urban growth boundary and a comprehensive plan. The UGB is a tool that defines the city's growth limit for 20 years, and the comprehensive plan spells out at a policy level how each city will make decisions about growth during the term of the urban growth boundary. Since 1982, Eugene and Springfield have shared a common regional plan, the Metro Plan, with policies to guide growth and development within our shared urban growth boundary. And then in 2007, through state legislation, Eugene and Springfield were required to adopt separate urban growth boundaries and comprehensive plans, and that's when our Envision Eugene effort really began. In 2012, then, Council endorsed our preliminary recommendation and community vision, which included direction, and there's a quote up here, to create a dynamic Eugene-specific comprehensive plan to address emerging needs. And that direction was included under the pillar Provide for Adaptable, Flexible, and Collaborative Implementation, the 7th pillar. And we have been following that direction with a variety of work tasks, including developing the first phase of the comprehensive plan and the urban growth boundary itself, which was then adopted last year. Due to the resource-intensive nature of the work, the whole comprehensive plan was broken into phases, and it began with the development of chapters that were essential to actually putting the urban growth boundary in place. So here's a visual on what was included in that, and the comprehensive plan table of contents is in your attachment A, and you have a whole version of the comprehensive plan there. It's pretty skinny, but those are the chapters that we adopted last year with the urban growth boundary. If you remember, during the UGB adoption process, we had a lot of technical work to do and policy work, and in order to actually land the UGB, we had to unhitch some of the train cars from the engine. And the train cars we kept and adopted with phase 1 are highlighted here on the slide. Those chapters include economic development, transportation, our whole TSP, administration and implementation, and the urban growth boundary, along with an introduction and a glossary. The 10th chapter, administration and implementation, includes our growth monitoring program that was enabled through policies that you adopted. But it's incomplete. We've only completed a portion of the work that needs to be done to fully implement our vision. So now that we have an adopted UGB and part of our comprehensive plan, we feel it's important to finish the remaining policy areas. Currently, we have a partial or incomplete comp plan, and we're continuing to rely on many policies within the regional metro plan. In addition, the policies are regional in nature and are old and outdated, so they keep us from responding to changing community needs in an effective manner. Actually, applying some of these policies is ambiguous and challenging and has resulted in some legal challenges. And they tend to be framed for the region rather than Eugene specifically, or they're absent altogether. Things like community resiliency in the age of climate change are not included at all in the Metro Plan. If we don't complete this, these areas, these topic areas will remain unaddressed or based in the regional Metro Plan. So when we're finished, the Eugene Comprehensive Plan will be able to guide future growth and development and fully implement our community vision with policies that support and balance all 7 pillars of Envision Eugene, as well as applicable statewide planning goals. And lastly, the comprehensive plan plays a pretty important and foundational role in guiding city prioritization of projects, long-range planning efforts, and public investment decisions. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chelsea to walk you through our proposed approach.
Thanks, Terry. So I'm Chelsea. I'm still a pretty new planner, just past my 6-month mark here with Eugene. I come from Virginia, so I'm really excited to be learning all about Oregon land use planning and really excited to be working on the comprehensive plan here. So I'm going to go over the project approach for completing the remaining policy chapters for the comprehensive plan, and they are highlighted here in green. So they include some pretty important chapters, such as housing, which is a pretty important topic right now. These 7 new chapters will build on many of the Envision Eugene pillars that are currently not addressed through regulatory policies in the first phase of the comprehensive plan in front of you. It is important to note that a great deal of work has been done to lay a foundation for the chapters in this phase. These 3 chapters highlighted in blue all have initial drafts that were developed in 2015 from best practice research, input from the Planning Commission Subcommittee, work sessions with the full commission, and a workshop with representatives from various boards, commissions, and local partner groups. And as a part of this process, we'll be reviewing and updating these initial drafts. While not a part of this project scope, another important component of creating the comprehensive plan is to develop a parcel-specific land use map to replace the plan diagram in the Metro Plan that we currently rely on. So this project will really focus on clarifying future land use for all properties within our UGB. And when complete, the map will be adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. Staff is in the beginning phases of technical analysis to better understand the project scope, and once we have a better grasp on that, we'll be coming back to you with a project charter and public involvement plan for that project. Also, part of this project, we'll be doing some updates to some of the chapters from Phase 1 listed here. So some minor updates to transportation, administration, and implementation in the Eugene Urban Growth Boundary chapters. Some supportive elements will also be developed for the formal adoption process, including updates to the introduction and glossary, along with ordinances, legal findings, and amendments to the Metro Plan and Land Use Code. And last but not least, outreach and coordination is an essential part of the project and is woven throughout the process. I'm going to talk in a bit more detail with the draft timeline and some highlights from the draft public involvement plan. So this draft process timeline provides an overview of the project milestones over an approximately 18-month time period. The boxes at the bottom highlight the different deliverables we just briefly covered on the previous slides. Currently, we are in the project initiation phase, which includes coming to Planning Commission and City Council to provide updates, and incorporating updates to our project approach based on feedback and project timing needs. Throughout the summer, we'll be focusing on developing the initial draft chapters highlighted here in the first 2 boxes by collaborating with subject matter experts. For chapters 6 through 8 specifically, we'll be working with the University of Oregon's Partnership for Disaster Resilience and using their expertise in providing best practice research, and they will also assist us with developing the initial drafts. Throughout the fall and winter, we'll be presenting the initial draft chapters in a workshop with a variety of stakeholder representatives and with community review and input to refine the goals and policies. The formal adoption process will involve both the City of Eugene and Lane County for application to land outside Eugene city limits but inside our UGB. So how will we get there? The draft timeline provided a brief overview of the process, and now I'm going to focus a bit on the highlights from the draft public involvement plan. The foundation of this plan will build on previous engagement and visioning from the Envision Eugene process. So I think we really want to honor all the great community input we've heard over the years and still provide new opportunities for new voices to have input on this work. The plan also involves collaboration with subject matter experts, workshops with boards, commissions, and local partners, including neighborhood associations, similar to what is pictured here from the 2015 Comp Plan workshop, which worked on developing the public involvement in the first few chapters that I had highlighted previously. We'll also be developing outreach materials and fact sheets, such as fact sheets and summaries, to provide information to the community. And input opportunities include an open house and online engagement. We'll be sending out regular project updates through a variety of methods, such as newsletters, social media, and the project webpage, as well as regular communication with the list of project stakeholders. So the list of project stakeholders is included in the draft public involvement plan, and we expect to continue to build on this list throughout the project, as we want to ensure an inclusive and equitable approach for the different groups involved. So focusing on city council roles, so as I mentioned previously, both Eugene and Lane County have joint decision-making authority in this project, as the policies in our comprehensive plan will apply to land outside our city limits, but within the UGB. Eugene City Council, while we're here today, will review and provide input on the draft project charter and draft public involvement plan. And both Eugene and Lane County will receive updates and provide direction to the project management team, as well as convening public hearings, considering planning commission recommendations, and acting to adopt the comprehensive plan chapters via ordinance, similar to the project for phase 1 of the comp plan. So for next steps, today, we welcome your input and feedback on the charter and public involvement plan, and please feel free to send your comments or thoughts if you have some over the next few weeks so we can incorporate your feedback. And we will be going to the Planning Commission on July 23rd for a work session where we will ask that they consider approval of our public involvement plan. And we'll also be providing an update to the Lane County Board of Commissioners and Planning Commission to keep them informed of this proposed process. So now I'll open it up to any comments, discussion on this.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have counselors who have questions or comments? Alan, go for it.
I'm interested in an integration of this plan with the other things that we're doing in the city, in particular, the Climate and Energy Action Plan that we're embarking on. Just hired a staff person to start that. How's that getting integrated into this? I suspect that's in the community resiliency chapter. But how's that getting integrated into what we're doing here? It also kind of infiltrates a bunch of different parts of the transportation.
Totally. Yeah. I would say we're closely coordinating with staff from the Sustainability Office, and I'm serving on the internal advisory committee for the Climate Action Plan update. And as that is an action plan, the focus is a little bit different than the comprehensive plan, which is at a policy level. So we're coordinating the work, but the focus is a little bit different. And you did bring up the work that we're doing with the university. They're informing us on best practices and policy-related things to address our climate goals within the chapters of the comprehensive plan. They'll also be recommending best practices for actions for us to include in our action plan or the climate plan update.
Because there's also the two subparts to that, which were to have the TSP come back with a plan of how it's going to be consistent with it, and that's integrated into this. And then also the CIP, Capital Improvements Program, which is city facilities, and how that's going to be integrated with CRO. And this, I think those things need to be very thoughtful and be specific and explicit in this document. I think those are very important parts of it. The second question I had is around the community plans that were part of Envision Eugene, in particular, the one in my neighborhood, the University Area Study, but also River Road and Bethel are the two other ones that we're focusing on. And how are those getting integrated into this, and where are they in terms of process?
Sure. So as you know, the River Road Plan is active right now, and will be coming to you once there is a recommendation from the Citizens Advisory Committee through that process. It'll be coming to you for adoption as a refinement plan. So refinement plans are documents, it's a term we've used over the years to describe a plan that goes through the state-required plan adoption process. For land use planning. So it would have all of those plans, if adopted by you all, would have a legal standing similar to the comprehensive plan and would guide all of the things that we've been talking about in terms of future programs and city investment decisions and that sort of thing.
And that's probably the first refinement plan we've done in 20 years?
Well, the last one I believe was Walnut.
The Walnut node.
Yes. So they have a variety of different scales. Our plans can focus big or they can focus small. So the Walnut Special Area Plan is in your ward and was adopted, I believe, in 2010. And actually, more recently than that is the master plan for the downtown riverfront, which was also adopted as a special area plan.
Yeah, I was referring specifically to neighborhood refinement. plans, more comprehensive than that.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've adopted an entire neighborhood boundary plan, but I believe the most recent one was Whitaker.
When was that?
Gosh. Gosh.
Well, the reason for that,
94
and a
maybe.
lot of people talk about comprehensive plans. The reason I brought this up is because I hear that quite often. Why don't we do more comprehensive plans? Well, because they're really extensive. They take a lot of time, effort, and money. You know, there's probably $300,000 to $500,000 of effort, plus all these people, plus all the community effort to do a refinement plan. They do have legal standing, but they're extremely difficult to pull off, which is why we haven't done one in 20 plus years. And so it'll be interesting to see how this one goes. Can you talk specifically to the university plan?
Sure, it's next in line. You all allocated some funds for us to work on capacity building. So the planning division, as well as human rights neighborhood involvement, are partnering on what that looks like and shaping up a plan for engaging the affected neighborhood associations and other groups in doing capacity building at that level to set the future refinement and area plan up for success. So that's kicking off this fiscal year, the capacity building component.
Right. Good. People in my neighborhood are looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Other comments from council?
I have a question.
Okay, go for it.
Sorry, I find this stuff somewhat difficult to understand. So we have refinement plans that exist right now. So those won't be integrated in, or they will be integrated? Because now we have refinement plans and we have the metro plan, and they don't always agree with each other.
Right.
So is that going to get fixed so that the comprehensive plan or whatever will agree with all the refinement plans that at least exist now? Or will there still be differences?
Well, there is an overall goal that plans are consistent among one another. That's the ideal situation. We've had the Metro Plan for a very long time, and over time it has gotten out of step with various other plans that have been adopted since that plan was adopted. We don't intend to conflict with any other plans, but the intent of the overarching Envision Eugene Comprehensive Plan is to be the guiding document, and if inconsistencies are found, the comprehensive plan would be the controlling document. With that said, and that is explained in the introduction, which has already been adopted, it's a handy place to look for a description of the relationship between plans.
Right. So so I guess I have a problem with that, because that's something that came up in our neighborhood, and it doesn't make common sense to me, but maybe you can explain why. Because if you have a large metro plan that covers the entire area, and then you do all this work to make a refinement plan, which you would think would then refine the master plan, why would that plan not be what you look to as the ultimate, like this is the authority because it was looking at a smaller...
Right.
State law.
I'm not saying it should or it shouldn't. I just want to
Yeah.
understand why you guys think it doesn't.
Because of language that's currently in the Metro Plan.
Oh,
Is
okay.
the answer. So that language is part of the Metro Plan. We will attempt to be as clear as we possibly can, in addition to the introduction language, which is already in place. Any policies that are adopted in future chapters, we will want to be very clear about how they should be used. So should they be applied and directed towards the city? Most of our policies are directed towards the city. City should consider adopting a special area zone for this area. That's an example of a policy. There are other policies in the Metro Plan in particular that are vague about whether they should be applied to a specific development application or not. So our first hope is that everything that gets adopted in a new planning document will be very clear about its applicability, so that we won't run into that question in the future of a local policy that seems to conflict with an overarching or citywide policy, if that makes sense.
And we pass refinement plans, just like we pass a metro plan. So is there any reason it can't be the opposite way? I mean, if we do all this work
Right.
in like the university area,
Sure.
and there's something that conflicts, and then we're like, oh, you guys did all this work, but it conflicts, so too bad. We're gonna go with. I mean, that
right.
seems ridiculous.
Right, we would not endeavor to adopt a new plan that conflicts,
Right.
what I would say. I mean, that's how we would.
But something
design.
can happen. I mean, I know for a fact it's happened in the past because we had something where a refinement plan didn't match the metro plan. So why can't we just do it the other way and just? Is there a reason why we wouldn't want to do that?
Is part of the question, throughout this process, we could actually change the metro plan, which would give precedence to a refinement plan
yeah.
rather than the metro plan.
I'm asking, why would we not want to do that?
Could we?
Yeah. Well, I don't think I can answer it completely because we'd want to look at the implications of doing that, of kind of flipping the priority of plans or actually changing the language that says one controls over the other. We'd want to make sure that we understand what the implications of that would be.
But it could be done if that were the metro plan could be
Yeah.
changed by
Oh, absolutely.
various jurisdictions.
Make them consistent.
Absolutely.
That's
Right.
state law, though, isn't it?
Metro plan rules.
Yeah.
Right, and that's a state law that it has to.
Comp plan.
Yes.
So that's the reason we wouldn't do it.
A comprehensive plan controls a city's policies. Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Okay.
But they need to be consistent. That's what she's getting.
Well,
Okay, Mike's up.
yeah, and I was going to take off on this exact same thing, so timing's just great. So, in order to remedy what she's talking about, that, as I understand it, is state law that says comp plan rules, right? Okay. So if we wanted, as a council, to make sure that in our new comp plan, we did nothing to create any superior position to a previously existing refinement plan, could one of the remedies be that we then, as a council, vote, direct staff to make sure of that in some fashion? Can we direct staff to ensure that no part of the proposed comprehensive plan comes into potential conflict with an existing refinement plan?
I think you could. I'd want to work with our legal counsel to figure out where those issues come up and how we could resolve them. I do want to be clear that it's not our intent with this project to update all of the existing refinement plans. That's not part of the scope.
Right.
So while we will not be intentionally creating any conflicts.
Nor would I want to, but I do want to make sure that we don't create an inadvertent opportunity to short-circuit the work done already for refinement plans. I want to make sure that that's as tight as it could possibly be, that we never have a conflict between a refinement plan and a new comp plan accidentally.
Sure.
So that, in essence, the refinement plans would control, because there's never going to come up a situation where there's a conflict between the new created comp plan and the existing refinement plan. So I guess I would say, as a part of the scope of this work, I would want to have that reviewed 1,600 ways from Sunday to make sure that there's no way our new comp plan comes into any potential conflict with existing refinement plans.
What I think we'd want is to figure out what the implications are about that and then be able to come back to the council and get sort of the view of the entire council around that kind
Right.
of question, because that's actually potentially a pretty significant policy question.
I know.
It may be actually the right policy question, but it's probably significant enough that we would want to
Well,
council.
and we can't predict the future. There may be some state law change in the future, some court ruling, some appellate ruling, or, DLCD of some kind that alters the landscape, pardon the pun, in such a way that it does create a conflict that didn't exist before. What I'm saying is, I believe, I may not be right about this, but I believe it would be council majority that would want to make sure we don't create anything to the best of our ability with a new comp plan that would contradict an existing refinement plan. So I'm looking for the best tool possible to ensure it doesn't happen. And perhaps you could advise on that. Do you have anything off the top of your head, or?
It's definitely an issue that has come up and that we're aware of. And off the top of my head, I would say we're designing the project not to create any of those conflicts.
Right.
I just need to think a little bit about how much of that refinement plan work on existing plans needs to be done to satisfy your request, and then come back to council for that full discussion.
Okay, thank you.
And just to jump in for a second, and just as part of that, if the last refinement plan was 1994 in Whitaker, or 1992 in Whitaker, whatever, it's a long time ago. So our perspective has changed, our projections around growth has changed, our Envision Eugene has happened. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations since then. So I'm not sure that I would suggest to council that refinement plan from 1994 should dictate all of our future decision-making about a local comprehensive plan. I mean, that's pretty out of date. So just put that out there that you might, going forward, want to protect refinement plans, but I'm not sure we want to lock in old plans in the planning.
I know
That's why I
that,
think we would
Yeah.
suggest eventually wanting sort of a full council policy direction.
Yeah.
You choose to go with that. as we work through.
You
I
want
know
to
that,
raise-
yeah, I just had a few seconds. I just want to say, I know that, let's just say there are several constituents of mine in the, who were part of the Wilkenzie refinement plan who didn't end up signing it, who would like to probably see some changes there too. So it'll be an interesting discussion.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, actually, the mayor picked up on a point I was going to make, which is age being one of the dimensions, the variables here. Which plans done at which time reflect current thinking in terms of what comprehensive planning should be. If the last refinement plan was done in '94, then that means the rest of the plans were done sometime before that. How many refinement plans? Does every neighborhood have a refinement plan, or are there some neighborhoods without
No, they
refinement
don't.
plans? There's only a few, if I understand correctly.
There's more than a dozen, I would say.
Okay,
but not
okay, so
everyone
we've got a
has one,
dozen
and
plans
some-
that could range anywhere from the 80s to the 90s.
Yes, some of the original ones were in the 70s.
The original ones were in the 70s.
Some of them were,
So there could be inclusionary zoning aspects to those refinement plans,
or exclusionary.
or exclusionary zoning aspects to those refinement plans.
Right.
Which I would consider illegal at this point. So I think to say that you can't be in conflict with a refinement plan that was written in the 1970s, to me would be a challenge. Now, I really appreciate your point about you don't want to intentionally create conflicts. It sounds like what we really need to do, and I know I'm thinking in terms of more work, but we need to have a sense of how old these neighborhood refinement plans are, how out of date are they in terms of contemporary zoning, thinking, whatever. Because I don't want to just blindly have faith that because the neighborhood did a refinement plan, it should have precedence over everything else. I need to know whether that refinement plan is still valid, I guess would be the word I would be looking for. And valid in a number of dimensions, and I'd want to know what those dimensions are. So I think you've already got a good start on what those dimensions might be, and those dimensions apply both to metro plans, comprehensive plans, and to neighborhood plans. They involve similar kinds of metrics, similar kinds of dimensions. And I would want to know if where we can immediately spot some conflicts in terms of those dimensions that exist right now, because we do need to talk about the policy implications of neighborhood refinement plans that are old versus metro plans that also are old and dictated by the state versus comprehensive plans that need to be put together to try not to conflict with all the others. I could start to get kind of a headache trying to imagine how all these different dimensions work together. But I don't want to start making assumptions about what should dominate what and what is better than what and what is in date versus out of date over what. I need some guidance from you in terms of where all this stuff stands, not just in terms of its legality, but also in terms of its applicability to current thinking in 2018, not 1977.
Alan?
Yeah, it's important to understand that the Metro Plan rules from state law perspective, and that's the document that actually is the ruling document. And when we've had, in my experience over the last 20 years, our conflicts with the Metro Plan have not been general in terms of policy. They've been very specific, down to the lot size, onto the specific lot. And the one in your neighborhood is a great example. And they're inadvertently discovered over time that those conflicts exist. To go through and comprehensively figure out if there's any conflicts anywhere we don't have the resources to do that, so I won't even go there. And another good example is the Metro Plan actually was originally on an 8.5 by 11 document, right? And then when you tried to blow it up and figure out exactly where the line was, it was impossible because it wasn't clear enough, because it was done in the 70s and the 80s, and we don't have it down digitized to the specific. And so that becomes a bigger problem. And we're definitely not going to update all the refinement plans. We're not, I mean, it's taking us 20 years to do one more. But the old plans do actually have value. They're not just all out of date. I mean, they do provide very important protections in neighborhoods. A good example is the Fairmont Neighborhood Refinement Plan is on the East Campus side. We went through that in the 80s about what we were going to do in Villard Street and how the U of O was going to, they own most of that area over there, and how that was going to be applied, and that it had to be maintained as residential character buildings, and they couldn't build things that didn't meet that criteria. And the new Black Student Union building that's going to be built is impacted by that. So the character of that and where it happens and where it's be located is actually impacted by that plan, which is from the 80s. So it does provide some real specific protections as well as guidelines for moving forward. But the new refinement plan, especially River Road Santa Clara, how do we make sure that we'll go through and try to be as consistent as possible? So then will we also identify areas that might be in conflict and then go back and say, okay, we need to change the Metro Plan, go through that process?
When we adopt a new plan for River Road Santa Clara as an example, we will need to make findings that it's consistent with our comprehensive plan. So we have to do that analysis and provide findings of consistency for you to adopt. So it will also replace the old 1987 public facilities plan for River Road Santa Clara. So we won't have to, not the transition plan, but it's called the public facilities plan from 1987 will no longer be something that we consult and try to wrestle with because it's out of date. We'll have a brand new plan that's adopted.
So what if they want to do something in that plan that's inconsistent with the comprehensive Metro Plan?
That's part of the process. We'll have to work through that.
Go back and we'll have to change the Metro Plan.
No?
That's an option.
That's what, yeah, right.
Right.
We'd
that
have to
would
go
be an
through that
option.
process. We don't necessarily have to do that. And the university special area zone, Sarah Maderi said I can't call those spazzes, but that's, and she's not here, so. The university spaz is not the same thing as a refinement plan. How does that get incorporated into it? And will that go through the same process the River Road Santa Clara?
So the upcoming university area plan?
Right.
It is the same type of plan in that it will have the same process and have to comply with all of the same state statutes and rules around land use planning in Oregon. So whether it has the term refinement in its title is yet to be determined. But the important thing is that it complies with the state's post-acknowledgement plan amendment rules. It's PAPA rules. We actually have a form called a PAPA that we submit to the state and tell them we're amending our comprehensive plan through this project, and there are a lot of checks and balances there.
And so when we go through that process, we'll make sure that it's consistent with the existing comprehensive Metro Plan.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. I sense from all of this that a portion that's listed may be the challenging part. Now, maybe I'm wrong about this, but it certainly seems to me the important part is this. Chris thinks we should be as up-to-date as possible. I think we should respect what's, that we have different opinions all around this table about the controlling fashion with which the process of adopting this should take place. I'd be willing to bet the farther away from this table we get into the community, there's a couple of other opinions as we go about that process. So the public involvement in the first chapter 1 piece about how the process and the procedure for this update is going to be the thing I think, and I hope we spend some of the most time and attention on. Because I think the broader, the more comprehensive our public involvement, obviously, the higher degree of chance that we'll see broad public support, broad support at the table, if everybody feels like they've been heard. So I really encourage you to give that the most attention, certainly at first.
Thank you for saying that. I actually wanted to follow up on that comment. And you and I have had this conversation pretty recently about public involvement plans. And I, you know, in the draft plan, page 4 of the draft plan, you list the other projects, coordinating with other projects, including growth monitoring, urban reserves, code of objective standards, climate and energy action plan, 2035 TSP update, moving ahead, River Road, Parks and Rec. So just in the last couple of weeks, we've had a number of presentations about different public involvement plans. And so I'm a little concerned about the overlap of all of these public involvement plans and how we make sense of that and enable the public to participate where and when they're most interested and able to participate without getting confused about, am I participating in clear and objective standards, or am I participating in Envision Eugene 2, or what are we talking about here? So I guess I just want to, I noticed something which I didn't know existed, so now I know that we have something called public participation guidelines for the city, and so I guess I'm sort of, as part of our ongoing conversation about this, wanting to look at those guidelines and sort of think about what does this coordination actually mean and look like, and what does it mean for us? What are we saying to citizens about when and how they can most effectively engage in this process, which seems very tangled and challenging to me right now. So just wanting to add that comment.
Thank you. I'm very interested in working with you all to make it easy for the public and not too much of a burden for people to participate, and in talking with people about what would make it easier for them. So I'm really glad that that conversation is happening and want to work on it more.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Thank you all very much. I think that brings us to a close.